Since the mid-20th century, Canada's development pattern has heavily relied on automobile use. While this seemed like a good strategy at the time, we are now seeing major congestion on our roads and highways, not to mention the negative impact on the environment and public health. Clearly, another strategy is needed. Our newly elected Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, promised $20 billion for public transportation, and that's important for a couple of reasons. First, Canada has never had a national transportation strategy, and we're the only G8 country that doesn't. Current federal funding comes in the form of short-term projects aimed at promoting development. Second, previous federal funding for transportation is never specifically allocated for public transit. This means that public transit has to compete, usually unsuccessfully, with other forms of transportation infrastructure like roads. Creating a national transportation strategy is a great start, but what powers does the federal government actually have? Our public transportation is under the authority of provincial governments who delegate control to local transit authorities. So while federal governments can't directly control public transit systems, they can influence decision makers through strategic funding and national regulation. Here are 3 policy recommendations for the federal government to improve public transportation in Canada. 1. Provide predictable long-term funding. This enables regional and municipal authorities to make long-term decisions for public transportation. The current scheme discourages long-term planning because of uncertainties in funding. In Germany, the federal government provides this type of funding to state governments who distribute among regions. Given similarities in governing structures, a similar scheme would be applicable for Canada. 2. Provide funds specifically for operational and maintenance costs. At this time, Canada's federal government only covers capital expenses, leaving operational and maintenance costs to transit authorities. In New Zealand, these ongoing costs of public transportation are split between national and regional governments. If Canada specified funding for operational costs, local transit authorities could better expand service and optimize existing transportation infrastructure. 3. Integrate local land use and transportation plans. Land use and transportation are intricately connected. However, these decisions are often made by different levels of government working independently of each other. Oregon has had success forming communities with representatives from different levels of government to integrate their transportation and land use plans. As a condition for funding, the Canadian federal government could require coordination between land use and transportation plans. This will encourage integrated communities and facilitate cooperation between governments and local transit authorities. So, the potential $20 billion represents the largest amount of money the federal government has ever considered committing to public transportation. That means we have a huge opportunity here to improve public transit infrastructure in Canada. We just have to be smart about it.